you need anything else right now?
Nope, there's dressing on the salad.
Yeah, there should be. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is. If there's not enough, just let me know and I'll get you some more.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, great. Thanks.
Operation Exchange was intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Today we're going to cover the history of tipping. My name is Billy.
Now I'm Courtney.
How do we want to start this, Courtney? There's a lot of history.
There is. I guess at the very, very start of where America got the idea of the tipping in the first place.
Okay, in the 1850s. Well, actually, before that. Before the 1850s. And I got all this from Saru Jaraman. I think I'm saying that correctly. She is the president of One Fair Wage. And I think her mission is to get servers up to a standard living wage or whatever.
Yeah, like the regular state or federal minimum wage levels.
Try to do away with tipping altogether. I think I'm not studied up on it, but rich Americans traveled to Europe and they witnessed aristocrats giving bonuses to servers, which they called serfs.
In the feudalism.
Which
was the 17th century, I believe.
So the 1600s?
Yeah, is when all that started in England.
Okay.
And so like that was a big class system pretty much in England.
Okay.
And then in the 1850s, that's when Americans started traveling over there, the wealthy Americans.
Okay, I gotcha. I knew the 1850s is also when the emancipation of slavery ended, right? And this all kind of ties together. So, or the slavery ended, the emancipation of slavery. Rich Americans would travel to Europe. They would witness aristocrats giving these serfs an extra bonus, pretty much just to say, "Hey, I'm wealthy. I can do this." It's it's an added tip. And they started bringing it back to America, and almost immediately it was, abandoned or discouraged as a vestige of feudalism.
Yeah.
It was considered undemocratic.
Yeah, like William Scott is quoted saying, tipping and the aristocratic idea of that it exemplifies is what we left Europe to escape. It is a cancer in the breast of democracy. And that, like, he was saying that in 1916. So the feelings of it lasted for a while.
Yeah.
That they didn't want any part of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, how still today many states, still rely on this whole tipping thing. But let's pause right there and get into why we're even talking about this in the first place.
Yeah.
I think we, as a couple, have always considered ourselves to be generous tippers. But we start seeing these memes on Facebook where these they could just be clickbait. They could be completely falsified. We don't know.
But there's definitely, even if the memes are just clickbait, there's definitely a surge of discomfort and disgruntlement with the tipping system right now, because your major news like USA Today and New York Times and stuff like that are writing articles about the American frustration with the tipping society right now.
I even saw CNN come out with a 10-minute hit piece on tipping pretty much. But so we start seeing these memes, and I saw one where the bill was $60 and the patron left
$15
tip, and the server said, if you can't afford any more than that, you should
Just
leave
stay
your
home.
broke ass at the house.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a 25% tip. Now they're hitting in my area of where I try to leave a good tip. I would consider 25% a good tip. We're finding out that, in some cities, 25% is considered a low,
average mediocre tip.
excuse me. Yeah, a low mediocre tip where, they're expecting 35 or 40 to be, a minimum of good tipping.
Yeah.
So it's like, where does it end? That's really, we got this whole thing called tipflation that's going around. It's some sort of movement that seems to have really taken off during
Since COVID. Yeah. And I believe part of that is because so many places were shut down. Nobody was going and sitting down at
Yeah.
restaurants. So it was a bunch of takeout orders if the restaurant was open at all. And so these servers who depended on those tips that were fine with the 18 and 20% tips then, when they stopped getting them all together, when they finally opened back up, it was kind of like all right, now I need to make up for everything I lost.
Yeah, yeah. And so we want to cover the history of tipping so we can actually lead way into the conversation of the future of tipping, because we're starting to see tips pop up at all kinds of different places
Right.
where we have never seen them before. And that is not necessarily a good thing for even those employees, whether they realize it or not. But let's cover the history of tipping real quick. So the emancipation of slavery,
You had all these freed people that needed work.
That's right. They needed work, and restaurant owners, they wanted to be able to employ these.
They wanted the labor.
They wanted the labor,
but they didn't want to give an hourly wage.
They didn't want to pay them, so they set it up just like feudalism.
The people would come in and eat. Mostly the wealthy people. They would come in, sit down, eat. They would get served by the freed slaves. And then it was up to them whether they left anything for them or not. Their wages completely depended on tips.
Yeah. And at $2.13 an hour, I think is where it's currently at. I believe.
Yeah, and that was frozen there in 1996.
Okay. As I saw in 1991 was when it actually went into effect at $2.13 an hour. And just in case you're listening, in the far future, it's 2025. That number hasn't really went up for most of the country. Mm-mm. So the thing is we'll see waitresses or I'm sorry, servers. I'll try to. I think
because
servers,
it can be.
It could be men. It could be. So servers, that put in 70, 80 hours a week at $2.13 an hour should be bringing home $150, $165, and all that money's going to taxes.
Right.
So they're still living off of straight tips.
Solely the tips.
Nothing has changed really. In this whole realm of thing, we
and like we all know, back when cash was used more frequently than cards, tips didn't have to be claimed because they didn't really have a way of keeping up with that at every table.
That's right.
But now, I'd say probably 90% of transactions are done with cards, and all those tips are left on a card. So those tips are having to be claimed now, which up until this recent executive order, those tips were having to be taxed as well.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Like, I know I'm guilty of it. I use it.
I never have cash anymore.
No, I mean I have to make a special trip for it because it's just card. But yeah, man. So we still haven't really evolved much as a country when it comes to that. But like also like raising minimum wage isn't always the answer either. I mean we see like I understand that everybody needs a livable wage. I kind of like the way Australia does it. Which we got some buddies that live in Australia, or not really buddies, but some acquaintances that live in Australia. And they, I was talking to Shane the other day, and he was telling me that one of our acquaintances was telling him that it doesn't matter if you're a gas station attendant or a truck driver or nurse, whatever. They pretty much all make the same wage, and I'm not sure how true that is.
Right.
This is just coming from somebody that lives over there, but I think the idea about that is, people will gravitate toward a job that they can do or that they're passionate about. I'm not saying that's the right way. There's several different.
Right. It's more like a living credit. I've heard of people trying to promote moving towards this credit system, not credit like we have, like the credit score system, but where every individual that's of working age that is working earns a specific credit of money as a base. And then anything extra over that is additional salary. But every citizen from every business earns a minimum of this credit to have a living wage.
Right. And, I believe, what they say, 41% of tip workers are people of color, 66 are female, 66%. 37% of tip workers are mothers. I'm like, nobody wants to see a mother not be able to feed their child
While they're feeding everybody else.
Yeah, while they're feeding everybody else, they can't afford to buy food for their family.
Right.
And so like I would love to see some sort of middle ground. And I'm not trying to like push my feelings upon anybody, but this is just something I kind of want to get to the bottom of. Hopefully we do have some interviews lined up with restaurant owners that, and one of them specifically, Casey,
Yes.
has been a server for many years.
She's just recently become a restaurant owner herself now.
So she gets to see both sides of it, and we've talked to her in short, but getting her on the next episode would be very beneficial.
Right.
But so not much has changed since 1991. Not much, not really. I mean, not much.
Not much has changed since the 13th Amendment was passed.
it's
as far as the tipped workers. And another thing that was crucial during that time were the rail car workers. That was pretty
Pullman
much
cars.
Right.
Okay.
That was pretty much what started moving the tipping system throughout the rest of the nation. A lot of the tipping started in the South.
The freed slave men would work on these rail cars,
Yes.
and they would do laundry and things like that.
Porters, they were
servers.
servers on the passenger rails.
And a lot of times the women were working in the restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so being a Caucasian, I'm not trying to be like the justice warrior or anything. I'm not trying to misspeak, but it does seem like this system is set in racism in a way,
Right.
And
sexism.
And sexism, yeah.
It's and I'm by far
a feminist.
a feminist that's out here screaming everything. Like there's definitely some stuff that if we'd have just kept our mouth shut, we'd have been better. But
I think the idea is just coming up with some sort of way to catch up and make
Right.
everything fair. I think that I think if you was to ask anybody, just about anybody, that everybody probably wants the same thing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But like it's you get these lobbyists in Washington that
are just looking at a profit dollar.
it's just a greed thing, man. It seems like it would be, I didn't even realize there was a National Restaurant Association. Not here to badmouth them because I haven't done a bunch of research or
No,
anything.
just recently learned about it because neither of us have. I worked at Sonic for a little bit.
Yeah.
I haven't been a restaurant worker.
Right.
Neither of us have been in that lifestyle of.
We don't have that experience. No.
Right.
I'm. Speaking of that, I'm a truck driver. You're
And I'm
a
a teacher.
Yeah. So we both have careers. That we've worked toward and get. You had to go to school for quite a while. I had to go to. I didn't get a CDL, so I had to go to like a trade school. But we don't have that type of experience. We don't know what it's like in order to be able to live off tips. I can tell you this. One interesting thing is back in 2003. I think I was making about $17 an hour, and man, let me tell you, those checks for a young man in his 20s. I was living high
Living on the high
hog.
horse.
Yeah, I was. I was living high on the hog.
That's
because
good.
the deal was like $17 an hour is just so much money back then.
Right, especially in our little area.
In our area, yeah, it wasn't. Absolutely. Like it's not.
Wasn't crap for
I
if you
wasn't
were
in
living in New York
finance.
City or anything.
No,
but-
I couldn't compete with nobody in finance on Wall Street. But what I'm saying is like, I was doing really well for this area. I could go to a car lot as soon as I told them where I worked. They'd be like, "What do you want?" You can get anything you want, man. Don't you don't have to worry about it. So but at that same time, one of my bandmates or former bandmates, the band had recently broken up, but we were all still hanging out as friends and stuff. And one of my bandmates, he was working as a server at Applebee's, and he was bringing home $200-300 more per week than I was just on his tips.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a multifaceted of views. Like there's some people that are gonna really still like. So I would just about imagine
some people really
supporters.
want those tips still, and
That's
others
right.
that aren't in those same restaurants or situations really just would like a paycheck for coming in and working.
Yeah, I mean you got to think about like say a mom and pop shop place where you can get it may be a nice restaurant. I've got some in mind. I don't want to mention them.
Right.
But you can go in there and get a $7 hot dog French fries and pay a couple bucks for a sweet tea, that's $10. At that same restaurant, you can get a porterhouse and a baked potato and a glass of wine. And, so that'd probably be like, closer to $70 or $80. And then, that server, maybe a server has the table that had the customer that was spending the money.
Right.
And then
the one beside
server,
them, or next table over, that server has the $10 meal.
Yeah, pretty much equal steps from the kitchen to the tables, and one server's making, if they get a 25% tip, say both of them get a 25% tip, one of them's, getting $3 maybe, and the other one's going to get closer to $25 or $30 or $20 to $25 at the
just a big a big difference going by that cost of the bill percentage versus the amount of time and work that both servers did. It's still a very unfair system.
It is. Yeah, it's an unfair system. I would say, I would say that if you got into a situation where, like we have a local restaurant here that's a buffet, and from the time that it opens to the time it closes, every day it's packed. And, that's pretty much a self-serve restaurant.
They bring you your drinks, and they bring you your bill.
Yeah, they got a menu you can order off of.
Yeah.
But I would say probably 90% of the people that are in there
are eating the buffet.
And so I've talked to some waitresses from that place when I was in high school, that they were in high school and they were making more money than I was talking about earlier.
Right.
Even more than my buddy John that worked at Applebee's. They were probably making more money than him.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff also has it's crazy, because I start reading through the comments of some of these posts on these memes, and some people are like, I'm not gonna lie, if she's cute and she doesn't mind me flirting or getting a handful of leg or something like that, she's going to get a better tip.
Yeah,
this is ridiculous.
it is.
As a man, and I'm not perfect. You know what I mean?
Right. He's a big flirter.
I am a big flirter, but I don't, it wouldn't matter to me.
Right. You're not trying to fill up the waitress.
No, I'm not trying to fill up
see
a
what
waitress.
she'll allow
I'm not
to
trying to
determine
fill up
her
a
wage.
waitress, period.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's whether she, is
that should not matter.
No,
when it comes to the tip.
Does my drink disappear? Does it? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the important stuff.
Did you have to ask for silverware 4 times?
Yeah. Stuff like that, man. Or when they brought you out your sweet potato, was it was it uncooked? Or whatever.
Right. Take it back, and your plate's hot from where they put it in the microwave
and
for
it's still
a minute, and the potato's still not cooked.
Yeah, it's we've had these situations before.
Yeah.
But if to me, if the server's trying to do their job, then I don't care what they look like.
Right.
So as a man, and I would say not a perfect ideal man, I find that
appalling.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's disgusting to think that whether that person is cute has anything to do with the tip. Unfortunately, that is the society that we live in.
Yes.
There's studies that say that more attractive people get more attractive jobs. That's ridiculous in itself, but that's not the topic for today.
No.
We're just the attractiveness of the server, the playfulness of the server, the willingness to allow sexual harassment happen.
Yeah, and we've seen some videos on waitresses talking about, depending on the time of the month. Like if it's close to the end of the month and they know they've got rent coming up, they put up with more crap from customers.
They'll let it slide
than what they would in the middle of the month, because they still got time to make up the money. So depending on their hardship and what time of the month it is, depends on how much harassment they deal with and accept.
If we don't look at this tipping thing from any other angle, then that in itself, is
it's a societal problem.
Dude, it needs to be straightened out. You
Yeah.
know, this is something we can correct, and it wouldn't take much to correct it. And these individuals that I mentioned earlier, what was that one lady's name you know what? I think I forgot to write it down. She's got a YouTube channel called The Roots, I think.
Yeah.
And she was going over the racism of tipping. A very good video. You know, if you're interested, if you're listening to this podcast, and you may be interested in that. And the Sarah Jayaraman, I think it's Jayaraman. I'm not 100%
Sorry if
sure.
the pronunciation is wrong.
Yeah, but and I said Sarah. It's Saru Jayaraman. So, you know, there's lots of good info on YouTube. You know, if you want to go back and watch some stuff. But yeah, on one of her videos, Saru Jayaraman, that waitress was, or she showed a clip of that waitress talking about the time of the month. You know, would depend on how much crap she would put up with from typically males.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of makes, it's kind of disappointing, you know, and I've talked to some of my friends and they're like, if I flirt and they flirt back, they're getting a better tip.
There's a whole chain of restaurants that's solely based on that.
Are you talking about Hooters?
Yes.
Well, you know, in Hooters' defense, you know, everybody knows that's what that restaurant's for, right?
But
So,
I mean, it was accepted. Like, the society accepted it like crazy, and that's what it is. It's eye candy to tip for their service.
Have you ever been to a Hooters?
I have.
They're not all eye candy.
Not well.
But they're dressed like I guess that could be eye candy to somebody.
Right.
But yeah, I guess my position on places like Hooters and then that place that we visited in Clarksville, I can't remember the name of that.
Yeah, it's the Irish.
It's an Irish thing where the girls work these little scampy.
Yeah.
And they got incredible
Yeah,
food.
the food's really
incredible
good.
Food. Can't think of the name of it to save my life. But yeah, you know, they're dressed up in little mini skirts, you know, plaid mini skirts, and you know.
And the reason they're so popular is because that's what is accepted within our society, and we're guilty of of going in the same places.
Oh yeah.
But like, from the viewpoint of looking at this and the waitresses and like harassment type thing, like some of those girls, it may be the only job that was available.
You think so? You think it would be like
that time.
I mean, you may be right. You may be 100% right. I have a hard time thinking, and I could be definitely wrong.
Right.
But you know, if a listener is in this position and would like to talk about it, then I mean, absolutely email us opexchangepod at
gmail.com.
So yeah, that we would love to hear from you. But I have a hard time thinking that there was a mother, or anybody sitting around on a couch, been like, you know, I got to get a job. Hooters is the only option I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it goes against everything that I'm willing to do
Right.
for a job, because Hooters are normally found in bigger cities.
Yeah.
Or at least around,
Yeah.
around bigger metro areas. So, you know, like, I would imagine that if you had the option to go to a Hooters, you would probably also have an option to go to somewhere like
Charlie's or something like that.
something to that extent. At least, you know, there should be a plethora.
Yeah.
You know, a whole buffet of restaurants, if you will, of options out there. I'm not saying. I do believe that anything that can happen probably has happened. So I'm sure that somebody has been in that position at least once. But if you have lots of morals, you don't want to be flirted with, you don't, you know, you have absolutely no desire to dress up, and you might as well
Flirtatious
almost be
attire.
a stripper. I mean, not really, but I mean,
Right.
you know, almost be like, you know, in that type of realm. You know, like, you know, I would imagine there would be some husbands out there that just that might be just as nervous about telling his wife that him and his buddies are going to get
To
some
Hooters.
wings, you know, going to get some wings and watch the
'cause
game at Hooters as they would going to the Pony across the street.
Right.
But yeah, I guess I digress. You know, like I guess that place exists. Not I wouldn't say out of necessity, but like it's no secret
Right.
as to what that place is. So I think most people.
Yeah, and I was just kind of hitting on the point of like our society is definitely very eye candy focused. That's why businesses like that can start up and become huge.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, that's where we're at. That's where we put our value in.
Right.
Kind of like when we talk about the some of the, I don't want to get ultra political on this podcast, but I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point. But like I set elections out on an occasion. I'm not sure exactly where I'm at, like politically homeless in a way. I don't really trust anybody. But as an outsider looking in, it looks like a lot of times in this day and age, we're voting for the
Popularity vote.
Yeah, it's what name
homecoming
do I,
court.
what name do I know most? Doesn't matter, what they're capable of doing, if they can complete.
Or what color are they wearing?
Or
yeah.
Any of that stuff, man. Yeah, so we are very focused on being lazy about determining the value of somebody else.
Or even understanding why we do the things we do. And I'm guilty of this. Until this tipflation stuff come up, I would not have known any of this history. I just wouldn't
me
have.
neither, man. Me neither. And that's the big reason why we're recording right now is because there's so much stuff out there that we don't know, and there's people out there that can help us understand. But also maybe
Help some other people gain a perspective of it.
That's right. If nothing more than just to offer a fresh perspective on things, some things that you might not have ever even thought about. All right. So have we kind of covered the history, or is there anything else you'd like to
Well, we got to the freed slaves, and those were the ones that started working these jobs. Then after that, in the early 1900s, multiple states passed laws to abolish it. There was so many people that were against that tipping system, including Miss Anne Morgan, who was the daughter of J.P. Morgan. She had plenty of money. She could have tipped all she wanted, but she thought it was degrading and a principle that should not be continued, to the point that she opened a rooftop restaurant above the Strand Theater, that it was against the rules to tip any of the servers there. She
paid them well.
Yeah, and she was coined as one of the main people in the war against tipping. So during that early 1900s period, it did get abolished, but then in 1926, all those laws were repealed. And then that's right before the
Great Depression.
Right. And the new, what was the deal?
Oh, the New Deal in 1938.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's right. The New Deal came along, the rights to minimum wages. The New Deal was passed and minimum wage was made a law.
For
with the
everyone
exception
except servers who were tipped workers.
Yeah, and I think farmhands and stuff like that.
And I think it's also was you definitely your bartenders, maybe even hotel staff at that point, like the cleaning staff and the luggage, like valet parkers and the
Stuff
luggage
like
people were in that. If I'm not mistaken, I've definitely seen them brought up a lot as tipped workers.
Yeah.
But I'd also know my mom worked cleaning hotel rooms, and she was paid a wage. She didn't base it off tips, so I don't think they're any longer considered tipped workers. But I think at that point they probably were.
Right. Hey, that is an area that I have never even thought about leaving a tip.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that too.
The hotel, we get a hotel room, we get out of there.
And you've always got the cleaning fees added to your stays, and I just don't think about it.
Yeah, man, that's something until this conversation that started happening, and I've never even thought of people are there's lots of people that depend on their tips in the hotel industry, but I was like, oh Jesus.
Which I'm also not one that ever uses someone to carry my luggage to my room for me. I do that myself, so I'm not purposely leaving out that person's tip. I just never use that service.
We typically don't use valet.
But when we do, I have tip. With valet,
especially if I have to get them to get the car 3 or 4 times a day. Uber. and Lyft and stuff like that, we get those rides. We generally leave tips. But all right, anything else on the history that you want to cover?
So after that, you had a Supreme Court ruling in 1942 that allowed all tipped employees to keep all of their tips. It prevented the pooling of the tips to other members within the restaurant. And then in 1966, Congress tried to put like a base wage that servers were supposed to get if their tips did not reach that. But what we've seen from a lot of waitresses that we've listened to is a lot of restaurant owners do not go by that.
Oh.
Like they're not paying them that wage. If they did not get those tips, not many of your employees are going to go argue with their employer and say, no, you didn't pay me because I didn't make these tips. We'll prove you didn't make those tips.
Right.
So
the burden falls
on the employee.
That's sad,
and
dude.
which also is like the threat of losing your job because you're arguing with your boss and they're just going to get rid of you because you're trying to push the law that they aren't wanting to follow. So there's a double-edged sword there for them. But then the wage gets frozen at $2.13, and it has not moved since 1996 and still can't to this day because it's still frozen.
In certain states. Some states are paying 15.
On the federal level.
Okay, on the federal level. Okay.
On federal level, it is frozen at $2.13. So states can choose to go beyond that federal minimum, and there's 7 states that have and require their servers to get the same state minimum wage that every other minimum wage employee gets. But another key thing was in 2018, the Department of Labor updated laws to include back of house staff in the pools. So now it's up to the restaurant owner, management, whether a server's tips are going to be put into a pool and divided out among the cooks, the
dishwashers,
the dishwashers, the people that bust the tables, and the server still keeps the majority percentage of it, but they're having to share it in a lot of restaurants now. So that lowers their wage even more.
Yeah.
Because now restaurants have that ability to use part of the server's tips to pay those other employees as well.
Right. Now, my stance would be that in the restaurant field, and kind of like you mentioned with the hotel earlier, they added a cleaning fee. Mm-hmm. I would just assume restaurants, we eat out a lot.
Yes, we do. We probably eat out more than we eat home cooked meals these days.
Yeah. By the way, it was an excellent omelet earlier. But we do eat out a lot. So we experience the customer side of this thing, but obviously we're not in the same boat as everybody else, so I'm not saying this is the way it should be, but personally I would like to see whatever percentage they can deem or they
deem as an appropriate tip. Yeah.
Be added to the bill, and we take all the guesswork out of it. We see places that like 18% gratuity has been added to your bill. We've also watched videos where people are, irate about that. They're like, hey, that's not legal,
And if they would just do away with the gratuity part altogether, just don't say gratuity.
Don't say it's gratuity. Just raise the prices.
Miss Ann Morgan, tips are not allowed in this restaurant, and there are restaurants that have done that, and their employees are making really good wages, and they're not dependent on the stuff, but their prices reflect enough to pay their employees. Just like any other business.
Yeah, any other
You go
business.
to the grocery store to buy a can of fruit. That can of fruit's based on how many of those they think they're going to sell.
Yeah.
How much they've got to pay their employee. If a price changes and it's costing them more, the price of that can goes up, and they still pay their employees.
Yeah, if the bananas are bruised, like you could, I've never been in a situation, but I would just imagine if the bananas were bruised and you went over there and were like, I'm not paying you for your time because my bananas are bruised.
Right.
You're like, or I don't even know if that's a good analogy.
But I mean, we're not paying for this great value brand because we wanted the Velveeta brand, and all you have is great value, so I'm just not going to pay you. take this right here.
That's pretty much what's going on in the restaurant. You know,
Right.
like, yeah, it's yeah. So if you do away with the word gratuity, all you like to me, as far as simple math goes, and I'm sure it's more complex than this, and hopefully this is something we can learn from Casey or other
Or any other restaurant owner
any
that
other
would like to
restaurant
chime
owner
in.
that would like to chime in. Yeah. But I would say, you increase the menu prices by 25% across the board. And then that should be enough to pay your servers.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I have no clue because I've never dealt with the business side
Right.
of, I do. I make,
And it may not, 25% across the board may not cover going from $2.13 an hour to $10 an hour if they don't sell enough items on the menu
Yeah.
regularly. You got to get your business to where you're selling product, and it's
Yeah.
not depending on your customers to pay your employees, the ones that do come in.
right.
And that's where I think a lot, and this is just my opinion based off watching some of the restaurant owners say we just can't do it, is their whole budget is based off $2 an hour is all they're paying that employee.
Well, I mean, what's
and-
the difference if you have a restaurant that's working, because obviously if people are coming in and they're not leaving any kind of tips, so like their servers just aren't bringing home any money, then the servers are going to quit.
Right.
So is it just a revolving door of people that come in to find out that it's not working? Like this place
Right.
doesn't have any customers that tips, and that's the only thing that's keeping that restaurant open. Or, if you got customers that are coming in on a regular basis and they're leaving 20-25% tips, and they're and the waitress is bringing home $600 a week. And I'm just throwing a figure out there. If she's bringing home $600 a week in tips, we cut those tips out. Those same customers are spending the same amount of money by giving it directly to the restaurant, and the restaurant turns around and takes that money and gives it to the server. I'm sure there's going to be some taxes that I'm not
Right.
taking into consideration. I've never employed anybody. Like we've kind of delved in our own little business ventures. Never
But never
anything
had any
major.
employees, yeah.
Never anything major enough to have any employees. So I don't know. And I want to be the first to say I don't know. I just and
that seems to be in the 7 states that have done that. All their restaurants didn't close down.
yeah, and it
all
seems
the-
like they're flourishing actually.
They've got money.
Not to mention the sexual harassment in those 7 states is like 47% lower.
Because
They don't
they're
have
not
to deal with
trying
it.
to work for that extra little bit of money from that particular person
They
that's
gotta
wanting to
bring-
see how far they can push it.
They
Like-
bring you your tea, get the fuck out.
Right.
Or I mean not necessarily
Yeah,
that
but
brush.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean like we're here for a purpose, you're here for a purpose, you're here to eat.
We're here to bring
make
you
sure
your food.
you get your shit.
Get what you want, how you like it.
Yeah, and then that's the
Right.
end of the transaction.
Right.
Get on down the road. But yeah, I guess my personal feelings about it. I was like, I don't mind either way. I'm not married to an idea. I just
I think we're still in a time where most people do not know where the tipping system originated. We have lost touch with our history, and the people in business that have these businesses, they know exactly what they're doing, and they just don't want to pay more than they have to. And they've got lobbyists to make sure that they don't have to pay more than $2 an hour.
and that's a really good point. I don't know if you did that intentionally or if that's just something that come out, but that is an excellent segue into like we could just say right now, if you don't pay attention to your history, what is the saying? What's the saying?
If you don't pay, like if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we are kind of segueing into
The light bulb moment I had last night.
yeah. The fact that we can go into gas stations and we'll see these tip jars,
Retail
or
stores,
you know,
packaging facilities online now, like asking for tips for the person who packaged your order.
yeah. Would you like to leave a tip for so and so who boxed your order up? Now, so these, like you said last night, if
Eventually they start seeing a high amount of tips for these gas station attendant cashiers, for the retail store cashiers,
the guy doing your oil change,
yeah, all these places that are asking for tips on these card readers now because of the convenience of the software system. All those are getting reported because that's money coming in, and it's getting reported as tips. So at what point do all these people that are receiving tips become tipped workers?
Yeah. Like, it's kind of crazy because.
And then all of them go down to the $2.13 an hour.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. If we, you go get your oil changed, I've been to an oil change facility and it asked if I wanted to leave a tip. And the person behind the counter said, ignore that. Don't want nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
And
they probably know.
Yeah, they probably put two and two together. Like, hey, man, I'm making 15, 16, 17, what, $24? I don't know.
Right. However much they're making is more than $2.
It's more than $2. And they don't want to have to depend on people coming in there and tipping in order to be able to make that $20.
And it could like, this is just another aspect of, I have been in management before, and I've like general manager level, and I've witnessed the district and regional manager thinking. But when you start like the bonuses or bonus initiatives that places like to do, when employees start hitting those bonuses, they usually start making it harder to get those bonuses still.
Yeah.
If these higher end management start saying, well, they're making more than they were last year because of all these tips, they don't need raises anymore. They're getting tips. There's so many aspects of this tipping that could backfire on a lot of industries that it's just in everyone's face now. Everywhere you go.
Yeah.
You want to leave a tip. You want to leave a tip. You want to leave a tip. And the instant gratification may be benefiting some people right now.
I got an extra $40 this week
from tips.
Yeah.
But
and I'm making $21 an hour, and that $40 just bought me and my buddy a beer.
Yeah.
After working, it didn't cost us a dime.
Yeah.
But eventually
it may cost you dearly.
Yeah. That job turns into a tipped worker job.
Or it just keeps you from getting your cost of living raises, because right now you're getting tips, and we're just not going to give raises right now because y'all are making more money.
That's right. Even if they don't move backwards, they could just freeze in time. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you straight up that I'm fortunate enough to be in a situation where I make a fairly decent living driving a truck. But I've been making the same amount of money pretty much since 2018.
And it's not going as far either.
No, it don't go as far anymore.
At all.
So from 2018 to 2025, I'm not saying bonuses haven't been given, but I don't get paid on a metric of an hour. I get paid by the metric of a mile. So when freight starts going up, and which is a topic of discussion for other episodes maybe.
But as far as the freezing of salary,
that pretty much the freezing of a salary, you might notice that you brought home $10,000 more this year than you did last year, but your money didn't stretch as far.
Right.
And listen, we're not starving. We just told you we eat out a lot. So there's lots of little things that we could do personally if we were to get into a situation where we were hurting, that we could
stretch the money out.
We could stretch the money out easily. But the thing is like, I do notice that, like back in the day when I was making $17 an hour and I was buying Shawn pull cues and not missing any kind of truck payment or any of that.
And that's a whole nother topic.
That is a whole different topic, isn't it? Because like, what was that? 2008, bought a F-150. It was brand new. Payment was $320 a month.
Yeah.
Now 2020, I buy
a used.
2024, I bought a 4-year-old F-150. Not much nicer than the one in 2008, if we're being honest. A turbo V6 instead of a V8. Which, hey man, I got no complaints. But the thing is like
the payments are more than double.
More than double, yeah. And then the truck's pretty much the same trim line or trim level, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, we went from a $19,000 truck to a truck that's $40,000 used. I don't know how much it costs new. It's an interesting world we live in.
So and that is part of the tipflation problem too. Like the servers, what tips they're getting, they're not stretching as far anymore either, because inflation is a huge deal for everybody right now.
But the price of food has been up substantially since the pandemic. So if you if you get a burger that's $10 now, that was in 2018. Let's say we're talking the same server that's been at the same restaurant for 10 years.
Yeah.
All right. So she was getting a 10% tip from Joe. Joe came in, left her a 10% tip on his burger, his fries, and his beer, and that 10% was $2. Well, now that burger, fry, and beer is upwards of $18. He's still leaving a 10% tip. I'm just throwing a number out there because it's easy, right?
Right.
But now she's getting $1.80 or whatever. So she's getting, but with the price of the food increase
and the price of the percent. The percent,
If
even
the
if the percent
percent
stays the
stays
same, the dollar amount should still go up because
it does go up. So it's if you got people that are thinking on the mind frame of not 10%, but
15%,
15 or 20% or whatever, whatever we decide is going to be the standard. But I'm that old where I remember a 10% was a standard tip.
Yeah,
If you got,
and then I remember it going 12%.
Yeah, 12%.
Then 15, then 18.
Now. When I was at Casey's restaurant the other day, and she said she didn't set it up like this. She didn't have any control over it. She, the credit
The
card
software,
reefer. Yeah. So it started off,
At 20.
I think I can't remember what I left. I had a to-go order, but I think I left 20-25%, something like that. But the thing was like the highest tip was 45%.
Jeez.
It didn't say 45%. It just had an amount over here.
And it totaled
and then
up to 45%.
And I had to break out a calculator, and I was like, because I knew, I was like, that's almost 50%. Because if I spent almost $60 there,
It was almost
almost $30 tip.
Wow.
It was $28. So it was like 28, 25. And
And
all
that's
did
a
the
whole other
pre-math
thing.
with
That's
you.
on a to-go order.
That's to go, yeah.
And that you're going and picking up.
But they don't know, the
No,
software doesn't
right,
know.
I know that. But I think as a society, like there's people that are like, I've left tips just because I felt social pressure too. You've got people standing behind you in line. You got a screen that's big enough for everybody to see. People get that social anxiety going on. Like, do I hit no here? Do I hit this lowest amount?
I have been
Do
in
I
truck
do I
stops.
feel bad? Am I supposed to feel bad because I'm not hitting this? I mean, I'm just picking it up to go. Like,
Yeah.
it's like going to a fast food restaurant and them expecting a 45% tip every time you go through the drive-through.
Or like Sonic, where we know those people at Sonic, they work their asses off. You've worked there before,
Yeah, I
right?
have, and
But
I've received tips from there, but I was also making minimum wage there.
exactly. That's
It
what I
was
gonna
not
say.
$2.
So like in that restaurant, you got these oftentimes young girls that are skating or they're running food from the kitchen to your car and all that stuff. But that's pretty much all they're doing. There's no
Yeah.
refills, no
It's
anything.
every
else to
now
worry
and then
about.
you'll have somebody come around with a little tray asking if you need condiments.
Yeah.
And that's rare.
Yeah.
Especially now. Like I see it maybe once out of 10 times I go.
And when we were young, people would probably prefer to have a job that kept them a little active instead of trapped in the
Right.
kitchen. So you would think that would automatically be like some sort of upgrade to a job. Just being
Oh, it
able
was
to,
great. In a college town, whenever I worked at Sonic, man, tips were wonderful with mom and daddy's money.
But even without, but even without tips, you're already doing better than the guy that's having
Yeah.
to operate the fryer,
Yeah.
all day, or however that works. I don't know. I've never been inside of a Sonic. But
I'm sure we were all pretty much minimum wage employees.
yeah, we're all making the same amount of money.
And just the one making drinks. Now, the car hops did make all the drinks and the milkshakes and stuff like that. But they were not in the kitchen cooking.
Yeah,
But they got to get tips for making drinks and running it out to the car.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the back staff got none of it.
And listen, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but like some people might say
That's not
that
fair.
that the kid that was able to run around outside all day, I guess unless it's raining,
Yeah, that's
snowing,
yeah.
sleeting,
And you're running in and out of the hot
to the cold,
to the cold, hot to the
getting
cold,
sick
hot to the cold.
constantly,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's not all picture perfect,
No.
obviously. But man, the fair weather days.
And you'll have those butt heads that will pull up to the one across. Like a lot of Sonics have the ones that are under the canopy, and then you walk across the drive area to another row of.
Yeah.
You'll have the butt heads that'll pull over there when it's pouring down rain, and there are plenty of them that you wouldn't have to walk across there. Yeah, they'll do it. In a heartbeat.
Think that's because common sense is dying.
It's dead. It's been gone.
Like, you wonder if they even thought about it, or they pulled in the parking lot and they were like, "I'm gonna be an asshole today." Or
Yeah,
if
they probably didn't think about it.
They didn't
But
think about
it's
it.
just it happens so frequently. It's like, come on, y'all.
Right. Okay, so the future of the past of tipping is dark.
Yes.
And it's concerning, and it's really concerning that the presence, hasn't really done anything about it. Like the powers to be haven't made a move to pretend that we're not just in a way.
In a way, we're too dumb to know any different.
Yeah, I mean, it's become so normal. But in a way, we've just kind of extended slavery.
Yeah.
Because I mean, these people still aren't getting paid anything unless
We're tipping them.
Unless we're giving it to them. Yeah.
But then now it's being pushed
into other industries.
That are not in that same boat yet.
That's right. Man, I was told, and I don't know how true this is. I really don't. But I was told by somebody that said, I was at a doctor's office the other day, and I was paying my copay with my credit card, and it asked me if I want to leave a tip.
I don't doubt it.
That's a doctor's office.
Because most of these places use the same credit card system readers, and the software is going to be the same. When they get updated software or updated equipment, it's going to go across the board.
We need to talk to somebody that sells this software.
Tell them to take the tips off.
Well, I mean, we need to know what's going on.
Right.
I would love to get somebody on the show that can.
Why
explain
does
the
everybody
software.
have to have the exact same options?
Yeah. Yeah, but it'd be nice to know. I mean, I've been in several truck stops that ask me if I want to leave a tip. Sometimes it's for charity, but the thing is sometimes it ain't. You gotta, if you pull into a Love's or a Pilot J, or a Pilot or Flying J or something like that, you'll know that when it's asking for that dime at the end or whatever, round up typically. Yeah. Would you like to leave $1 for this, or would you like to leave $1
round
for that?
Up for that? Yeah.
Sometimes it's would you like to round that? Round up your money, and I'm like. Yeah.
For what?
For what exactly?
And it don't have anything on the screen.
And I don't want to sit here and have a conversation with somebody all day about.
And the cashier probably
don't know
anyway because they don't set those prompts on those.
If I see the American Heart Association or Le Bonheurs or something like that,
Ronald McDonald House,
I know who I'm supposedly giving money to. But if I don't see that sign pop up and
it's just asking for money,
it's just asking for money. And I'm like, well, who the hell does this go to?
Right.
Just out of curiosity. I've left, sometimes we take showers on the road, and sometimes I'll know because of the situation. If I have to pay for a shower at 6:00 in the afternoon, where I'm fifth in line, it took 45 minutes for me to be able to get into a shower. Busy because
they're having to clean all those showers,
and they got one person back there cleaning them. And if I've heard people say well, I'm the only person here. Because a manager will say something to him man, the line's backing up. He's like, I'm the only person here.
You get in here and help.
Yeah, somebody could, and you walk around the store for that 45 minutes, and you now as a customer, I know that he's the only person back there cleaning the showers, and you see a bunch of other people
standing around
that are not doing anything.
Yeah, including the manager.
When I get done with my tip, a lot of times on those long waits, I pay a visit to the ATM. I get done with my shower. A lot of times I'll leave money in there. Or I give it to him directly if I see him out in the hall, or I say him. That in this case it was a him, but in the case that I'm thinking about in my head. But yeah, no, it's an interesting world we live in.
Yeah,
I think the younger generation, which could segue into a whole different series. But the younger generation, they can't afford to do the things that we did when we got out of school.
No, it costs way too much to do everything,
dude. They're not making enough money. The cost of living.
For the first time since the 70s, the cost of living is more than the average salary.
Based in, yeah.
And the cost to start for a family of 3.
And she's referring to the Jimmy Carter era, where the price of gasoline and stuff like that, shot through the roof. It caused inflation across the board. It's
the first time, 2024 hit that mark.
Yeah. So that's it could be a total different conversation, but the young people can't afford to do anything. So it's got to be disgruntling. If you're working 60, 70 hours a week, whatever you brought home that week isn't enough to move out of your parents' house and get that stability that you want.
Yeah, because you're having to pay for a car that's way overpriced.
Yeah.
Pay for the insurance that's way overpriced.
Paying for insurance you may never use.
That's way overpriced.
That they're not ever going to contact you
And
be
if you
like,
do
hey,
use it, they're going to raise it on you again.
it may even kick you off the policy. We was
Right.
on a policy for 13 years.
Yeah.
Had an accident, and they raised the price of us, or
To the
price up.
point where
It was like, oh, if you want to stay here,
Yeah.
then you're going to pay dearly because. And I was like, dude, I've given you over $100,000 for all of our cars combined over the last 13 years.
and you had to give us
And you had to give us
$6,000
$6,000 back, and now you want to, you get your panties in a fucking wad.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyway,
No, it's the whole consensus of all this, though, is stuff that has become the norm that we as a society have just gotten used to being the norm without even thinking about why it's the norm is what gets us in the situations we're in.
yeah,
And the future of tipping and restaurants and restaurant owners and the people that work in them could greatly be affected by the outpour of other tips being asked everywhere. USA Today did a poll, and 3 out of 4 people feel that the tipping society has gotten completely out of hand. And you've
Yeah.
got a lot of people that have just got to their frustration point of everywhere they go asking for more of their money. And honestly, most Americans are working, living paycheck to paycheck.
yeah,
And they can't afford to pay everyone's employees at every place they go.
yeah.
And so it's getting to a point where their frustration level is just making it to where, fine, I'm just not tipping anywhere. I don't care anymore.
Or I'm not going out to eat anymore.
Or I'm not. There was people that were making statements about if I go into a gas station and it asks me for a tip there, I don't go back there
I'm
anymore.
not ever going back there.
Not again.
Yeah.
And it's getting to where people are going to go back to doing things for themselves. And
We're seeing it on an influx.
Yes.
Got friends of mine that are coworkers or whatever.
Started getting chickens and doing their own gardens.
They got
and they're-
chickens. Hey, you need some eggs.
I've really started, like, if I wanted to put in the time, I've got a lot of the knowledge now. I've been studying up on different foraging and stuff.
Yeah.
I could be stored up on stuff. I just haven't reached that frustration point yet.
Yeah, and two afternoons, 2 very, very calm afternoons. What were those mushrooms that we went and collected around?
Honey mushrooms.
The honey mushrooms. Those things are like pretty high in protein and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff, right? So like I think we harvested
Man.
probably 150 pounds. We didn't even keep them all. We couldn't keep them all.
yeah.
We didn't have enough space to store them all. But
And not too many people have enough knowledge of that, which is a whole nother aspect or topic, but not enough knowledge of mushrooms that you can't even give them away most of the time.
Yeah, no,
I know
no,
they're
I'm not eating
perfectly
that mushroom.
no. Or you ask people, do you care if I get these? They're growing in your yard before they go to waste. If you die, don't come after me. Like so, like there's a lot of people that are starting to pick up on the old ways of living, the taking care of themselves, the going off grid, getting away from all of it, and this is just one part of what's driving everyone that direction.
yeah, it's just one part. And I don't think anybody's happy with tipping in a whole, unless you just happen to be that worker that works in that gym, that that honey hole of a restaurant that you have to do bare minimum work. You're not flooded with an overload of
harassment
patrons. Yeah, you don't get the harassment, and you got very, very, very generous tippers, and you're doing very well for yourself.
Yeah,
And
there's definitely some waitresses out there that's like, no, do not
don't
mess with my
don't
tips
mess with my tips.
I make $150,000 a year with my tips. They aren't
Yeah.
going to pay me that.
Right.
And that was the aspect I was getting at with the paying all of them $10 an hour may do something to their profit, but that's what they're trying to avoid. That's what from the very beginning has been. We want y'all to pay for our employees. We don't want to have to pay for them.
We don't want to pay for
We've
them.
got the place here for you, but you're going to pay for them.
Yeah. Well, if as a restaurant owner, if you got waitresses that are making $150,000 a year on tips, you've got some patrons that wouldn't mind paying more for your food,
Yeah.
especially in light of you taking care of their salary. Because they obviously those customers are wanting to see those those
employees
servers.
do well.
Yeah, they're wanting to see them do well. So, yeah, we want to hear from anybody. Is it a good place to wrap up?
Yeah.
Okay. Want to hear from anybody that wants to talk. You know,
And leave the comments. Even if
Absolutely
you
leave
don't
a
want to
comment.
be on the show, like comments are open on the episode.
That's right,
Let us
yeah.
know what you're thinking.
Yeah, you can comment on Spotify. I just figured that out a few days ago. I've had my Spotify account, or we've had our Spotify account for
For probably
12,
probably going
15
on 15 years.
something like that. And I've never even paid
and he
attention
listens
it.
to a lot of podcasts.
Oh man, I'm in the top 1% of so many bands. So, dude, because
And the podcast, like you listen to a lot of those on those long drives.
oh yeah, there's a lot of podcasts out there that get a lot of my attention. We may talk about that at some point, but yeah, no, that's opexchangepod at gmail.com. Drop us an email. Let us know you want to talk. Man, we'll be glad to hear from you.
And we can do it all remotely too.
Yeah, we can do it on a Zoom meeting. There's several different streaming platforms we can do it from. It doesn't have to be video.
Regular phone call.
Yeah, because I mean, we're just audio right now.
Yeah.
You know, that may change in the future. It may go video. But as of right now, we're just starting up audio. But yeah, we can definitely do a phone call. We can accept a phone call on our Rodecaster Pro 2. That's not sponsoring us yet.
No.
But by God, I'll mention them in every episode until we get noticed. All right. Thanks for listening. You guys have a good one.
We'll talk to you later.